Good afternoon, everyone. We're just waiting for the numbers to build up. So if you can just bear with me. Thank you, everyone, for joining so far. We'll start probably in about a minute or two. Some people are still coming in, so we'll just focus on those first. So just to be clear, if you have any questions, there is a Q&A box. There is also a chat box where you can put things in. There will be time at the end for some questions. So if you have any questions, please, I'll be happy to answer them at the end, or potentially after the presentation. You'll have my contact details. So the numbers are still coming in, just waiting for a few more people, and then I think we'll begin. The good news is, from your point of view, is I can't see you. So if you're having your lunch, that's fine. So enjoy your lunch, hopefully, and we'll get started in about a minute. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for sharing the time to listen to my presentation this afternoon. I want to talk about developing a growth mindset for business, and what is the difference between a growth mindset for us as individuals and a growth mindset for business. Well, first, perhaps I should explain who I am. My name is John Fuggles. I have a corporate background, and I work for small businesses and large corporations, advising them on their growth strategy. Now, growth strategy isn't just run some sales campaigns, employ some salespeople, do some marketing. It is a lot more than that. It is about understanding the performance of the company, the financials, the operational performance. But in all of doing that, I've also noticed that one of the most significant differences in companies that progress and grow well are the people within it, and the attitudes of the management and the staff and the operational people moving the company forward. So what we're going to look at today is what is a growth mindset and how we apply that to the working environment. So in order to develop a growth mindset, we need to understand what is a growth mindset. And we need to go back to about 20 years ago, and a lady by the name of Carol Dweck, who was a lecturer, and she studied students and those who did well in exams and those who suffered. And she identified what she called then at the time a fixed theory of intelligence and an incremental theory of intelligence. And that became her study, and eventually in 2006 she produced a book. Since then she's produced a number of books, and certainly if anyone knows anything about growth mindsets, there's an awful lot been published on it right now. If you want to know more, there are some brilliant books out there. So let's just deal first with what are the 5 key elements of a growth mindset. So the first element that we need to look at is challenges. How do you deal with challenges? Do you see a challenge as an opportunity to learn something new, to do something new, to learn a new skill, or to hone and improve a skill that you already have? Or do you see it as an obstacle? Do you see it as something to avoid? Do you see it as perhaps something to give to someone else? So whatever you see as a challenge is one of your attributes to your growth mindset. So embracing challenge is a key part of it. And how do you deal with obstacles? Are obstacles things to be avoided? Do you find a way to go around them? Do you find a way to remove the obstacle? What is your approach to dealing with problems that are in your way and blocking you from what you want to achieve? Do you try and give it to someone else? Again, a key attribute of a growth mindset. The third of the 5 key attributes on a growth mindset is about effort. Now, here's some marathon runners. My marathon running days were a few years ago now, but I do know that in order to run a marathon, you don't just run a couple of miles and then the next day maybe run another mile more, and so on and so on, until you get to 26 and a bit miles. Effort to run a marathon is a lot more than just running miles. You need to change the types of runs, hill runs, short runs, long runs. You need to work on your strength and conditioning and flexibility. So the effort in just getting to the start line at a marathon is huge. And that's just to get you there. That's before you've even run the race. So what is your attitude to effort? Is it that you just do enough? Or is it that you go that extra mile? What is it you do in order to achieve what it is you want to achieve? How much effort are you willing to put in? And how do you deal with criticism? Now, I particularly like this picture here. It is drawn that way. I haven't cut the head off, don't worry. But this chap is clearly making a point. He's clearly pointing at someone. How do you deal with that? Do you like criticism? Now, criticism can be given in a positive way. It can also be given very negatively, and we try and avoid that if we can. But criticism done well and consumed well, and that's the important thing, moves us forward. If you look at this picture again, he's actually smiling. And that's what you need to look for when you're handling criticism. It's not how pointed it is, how judgmental it is, but what's the intent behind it? And how do you deal with criticism? Do you take it as an opportunity to learn? Or do you see it as someone trying to put you down? And the final element of a growth mindset is understanding the success of others. Oh, something's gone wrong. Bear with me. Just last week, we had SpaceX send an astronaut up into space. And while we were watching the astronauts heading into space and shots of ground control, sort of making sure that everything was going okay, there was one element that perhaps might have escaped a lot of you. Now, the booster rocket on that ship went all the way up, and then it was released to come back down to be reused. And as you watched it come down, and you'll see in the picture there, it landed perfectly, computer controlled, and very, very clever stuff. And that rocket landed pretty much bang in the middle. Now, the people responsible for landing that rocket are a critical and pivotal part of that team. But how do you think they felt when someone said, okay, you're going to be dealing with the team that's responsible for landing the booster rocket back on the ship? Your friends and colleagues, they're going to be responsible for putting the guys up into orbit. Would you feel cheated? Would you feel slighted? Or would you be really happy for them? Dealing with the success of others is a critical part of a growth mindset. And just to be clear, after they docked up in orbit, the first people to ring Elon Musk and congratulate him were obviously various presidents and other people, but Jeff Bezos, Richard Branson, his competitors rang to congratulate him. So what do you do? Do you do that with your competitors? But I hear you saying, but business is different. Well, it's not. It just needs translating. We need to take those 5 skills and translate them into a business environment. But we need also to encourage the individual growth of the people within the business, because a business growth mindset needs the growth of the people to work with it. And you need to provide opportunity for people within your organization to grow. Now, a little while ago, The Independent ran an article where they said that half of the millennials will only stay in a job for about 2 years. I think it was something like 40-something%. But 28% of people, of millennials, will only stay 5 years. Well, why does that matter? Millennials are one group. No, millennials currently count for 50% of the workforce. And the cost of replacing someone who leaves is estimated to be about 1/3 of their salary. So you need to understand what key groups like this need and understand how to retain them and develop them and grow them. And on this next slide, you'll see these are veterans, baby boomers, Generation X, and millennials. I'm not going to tell you which one I am, but I'm definitely not a millennial, let's be sure. But this is what millennials need. They want to know, as it says here, what's next. They want multitasking. They want entrepreneurship. So they want to be given the ability to do new things, to try new things. They want to be given the opportunity to experiment, to learn. Looking further down, they want feedback, constant, regular, positive feedback. Something we mentioned earlier in that chart, where, take the feedback. So they want that, and they want to work with other bright people. Now, bright people tend to stay in organizations where they're given the opportunity to do things, where they're given the opportunity to experiment, to try. So if you want to look after 50% of your workforce, you need to give them the environment to experiment, to learn, and to develop and to grow. And that's for that 50%. The other 50%, you need to give that to them as well, because that is how people flourish. And people flourish in an organization and they stay. There are reasons why people leave their job and reasons why people want to stay. On the left here, we have an article by a Silicon Valley consultancy. Now, I appreciate it's a bit small, it's a bit difficult for you to read, so my apologies for that. But in there, those two items that I've circled, you'll see that 56% of people leave because they're not allowed to grow. They're not allowed to develop, they're not allowed to experiment, they're not allowed to learn, they're not allowed to get better. They're not allowed to do new things. And 39% of people leave because they're not engaged with the organization. They don't feel they have a close relationship with that organization. On the other side, we've got reasons for people to stay. Yes, people want to be paid well, and in the current climate, that may be very challenging, but that is one reason. But it's not just pay that people stay in a company for. People want to be mentored. They want to learn. They want to grow. They also want to be challenged. They want to be given new things to do, new opportunities, and be allowed to fail. And we'll come on to that in a minute. Yes, promotion, money, salary, more responsibility, obviously. But looking at the other thing about the other side of that chart about being engaged, people want to be involved. They want to be part of the decision making. They want to be appreciated and valued. And if you look at the two items in the bottom right-hand corner, they want to be empowered, given the opportunity to do things. And they want to be trusted that you will let them get on with things, and trust you that you can leave the company given the opportunity. So of the 7 reasons for leaving, 2 really relate to growth. And of the 10 reasons for staying, well, as you can see here, they want to be mentored, challenged, involved. They want to be appreciated and valued. And they want to be empowered and trusted to do other things. So what does that mean for the business? This is what the people want. This is what a growth mindset delivers. The first trait of a growth mindset is agility. What is agility? Changing roles, given opportunities, new tasks. Encourage them to do new things. Encourage them to experiment. Encourage them to try. Give them opportunities. And allow people to fail. We learn more by failing than we do by success. And some of the best successes are actually born out of failure. We all know the Post-it note. Everyone has Post-it notes. I'm sure everyone knows what they are. But that was a monumental failure. Glue, when it sets, becomes brittle. So the theory was, if you have a glue that never sets, it will be incredibly strong. But they developed a glue that never set, strong at all. So they had jars and jars of this stuff, and they didn't know what to do with it. And the people in the labs just would paint it on the back of a piece of paper and stick it on someone's desk. Someone else saw this and thinking, there's a great idea here. And so was born the Post-it notes. But what happened after that was really, really clever. How do you launch a product like that? So 3M took a list of the Fortune 100 companies in the USA, and they got a list of all the executive officers of all those companies. And they sent their executive assistants a pack of Post-it notes. Suddenly everyone wanted them. So sometimes failure can actually deliver amazing results. So allow your people to fail, allow failure, encourage failure, because it's only by experimenting and trying new ways of doing things that we can fail and learn. But here's the thing, fail quick and move on. If you fail, move on. Move on very quickly. The second trait is about responsibility. Do you take responsibility for your actions, good and bad? Do you encourage other people to take responsibility for their role, for what they want to do, for what they want to see in the future, for the changes they want to see? And is it okay in your organization if people fail, they put their hand up and say, yeah, I failed, I'm taking responsibility? Do you encourage that kind of ownership? Now, we're currently in a challenging time, and typically the first thing that goes is learning and development training and coaching, which isn't just about going on a training course for 3 days. Learning and development is reading books, self-learning at home or through work. I know companies where everyone who works there has a book allowance, and they can order books for personal development, for career development, for training, and the company pays. And it's a fantastic thing to see how many people embrace the idea of self-learning and development. But learning and development isn't just books, it isn't just going on training courses. It's about sharing ideas, it's about experimenting, it's about trying things. I want also to talk about trust. Trust is very much a two-way street. You need to trust your team, your staff, the people who work for you. You need to trust that they will do a good job. And they need to trust that you can lead the company going forward. And you need to nurture and grow together as a team and have that reliance and that trust with each other. Now, the final thing is something we've already mentioned, and that's feedback. My computer's playing up, sorry. Feedback is a two-way street, absolutely, but it needs to be positive. Now, sometimes that can be really difficult. Giving positive feedback is not always easy, particularly when the situations are slightly different. But if you, and I'm sure a lot of you have, if you remember the 7 habits of highly effective people, one of the habits there is listen to understand. Not just listen, not just hear, understand. And if you're not clear and you don't understand, ask more. Take the time to investigate and understand, and listen before giving feedback. And give constructive feedback, but take feedback as well. Feedback goes up as well as down, and it goes across your peer group. Be honest as well with feedback. And sometimes positivity and honesty can struggle to work together, but try. These combined are the 5 elements of a growth mindset in a business. Now, if you can work these, then you'll have a growing business, regardless of what else you do. So how do we do this? How do we take this forward? Well, now is the time to act. Four things that we need to do in order to move a company forward in terms of developing a growth mindset. Find those people that are excited about learning new skills, new techniques, about ideas, about growing what it is they do, about taking on responsibility. Identify them. Identify their skill and their capability. In other words, how much could they do? And get them to be the catalyst that lights the touch paper. Get them to move this forward. Shake up the organization. I don't mean a wholesale reorganization. I mean some changes. Give people different roles and responsible functions. Allow people to experiment. Allow people to try. Allow them to develop new skills. And encourage collaboration. At the heart of all this is the culture of the company. Be open to taking risks. You know, back in 1997, there was a famous chess match. Big Blue played against Kasparov. And Kasparov lost. Now, about 20 years later, a book came out, and it appeared there wasn't actually this fantastic grand move that Kasparov couldn't understand. There's a thing about chess players who resign rather than actually get mated and lose. But he couldn't get his head around it. He thought this was some amazing move that he really couldn't understand. In fact, it was a bug. It was a coding error. There was a problem. Yes, computers don't make mistakes. It was the people programming it that made the mistakes. But Kasparov lost because of a computer bug, because of a mistake. So learning by mistakes matters, and the best of us can still learn by mistakes. So allow people to make mistakes, and you'll be surprised what happens. Not everyone is open to risks. Build a learning culture. Allow people to take risks. Allow them to take on new challenges and new opportunities. Allow them to be creative and accept that those failures, are acceptable. They're part of growing. They're part of developing. Manage those. Not everyone wants to do that. Not everyone wants to be part of a growing company where the culture is about doing more, doing different, being creative. But use those people to lead, and others will follow. Yes, some will always struggle to embrace the idea of learning through change and learning through experimentation, but that's okay. And when you do that, whether they are part of the learning culture, whether they're part of the growth culture, allow people to find their own path. But reward not just the results, reward the effort. We do that at school. We teach our children, and we measure them on effort as well as results. So we should be doing that in business as well. My name is John Fuggles. I hope you found this useful. I hope the idea of a growth culture within a business is something you're looking at. These are my contact details. If you'd like to know more, please feel free to contact me anytime. We're going to go into some questions now, so if I don't get to answer them all, my apologies. I'll be happy to pick